Welcome to Confessional, the video series where I, Stephen Leonard, recount some of my stories from over 25 years in marketing and communications. Now, in this second installment, I'm taking a look back at some of the madness of my first Olympic torch relay that led up to the 2002 Salt Lake City Winter Games. So first, though, I need to say that the experience was an absolute blast. I was working for the marketing agency that was hired by co-sponsor Chevrolet to activate its marketing campaign all along the relay during the 65-day run through America. And I was in charge of the dealership celebration team, which consisted of 3 teams of 2 guys each who manned large motorhomes decked out with interactive games and Chevy branding. And I coordinated their deployment at Chevy dealerships and other strategic points along the route, as well as the midday and the evening celebrations. So though it was a lot of fun, for sure, I was in a constant state of putting out fires and sometimes creating fires myself. So while I did love that job, it wasn't all just fun and games. And I think that the tone was set in Atlanta on the very first day of the relay when I had a run-in with the original GOAT, Muhammad Ali. So the flame always starts on Mount Olympus in Greece, and then it gets transported to the host country. And so for the 2002 relay, Atlanta was chosen as the starting point for the 65-day, 46-state run through America because it was the last place where the Olympic Games had been held on American soil. That was famously 1996, and famously in 1996, it was Ali who lit the cauldron to start the Atlanta Summer Games. So here he was kind of back again to kick off the relay. And I remember I was backstage at the event in Centennial Park, and just across the stage from me and a colleague, there he was, the champ. He's sitting in a chair, kind of like this a little bit, waiting for his moment. And I am just like stupidly gawking at him. And I remember pointing. I was like, that's Muhammad Ali. And so I just kept staring, and eventually, like, Ali kind of like raises his head up, and he turns towards me, and I'm like, so I give him a little thumbs up sign, right? And he has this stony glare, and he locks eyes with me, and then he raises his arms, and he just mashes his fist like this, and then he points, as if to say, like, I'm gonna come beat you up. It brought me so much joy, this little gesture by Muhammad Ali. And I mean, I can see why he has charmed the world for so many decades, because he is magnetic. But that little moment of playful, right, mock fighting would prove to be kind of an omen for what was to come. So now I'm going to skip ahead 2 months. It's February 6th. Right, we started off December 5th or 6th, and now it's February 6th. And we're 2 days away from Salt Lake City. And we're visiting the good people of Tooele, Utah. And we've got a morning dealership celebration at Quality Chevrolet. And so, as I recall, it was a very early morning call for my team. And this particular team is made up of 2 guys named Johnny D and Lawrence. Lawrence doesn't get a last initial. Johnny D was Johnny D. But they're the ones who are going to be at the celebration. They get there on time. The celebration, as I recall, goes great. Johnny D was a real live wire. He was sometimes a DJ, I think, on the side. And he was very used to being in front of people. So he and Lawrence, they did a great job of revving up the crowds. I mean, there's hundreds of people at the dealership, and they're all having a good time. Basically, it starts, about an hour and a half before, or maybe an hour before the flame gets there, and then there's a big celebration when the flame is there. The flame stops and kind of hangs out. The person holding the torch hangs out for a while, and then the flame carries on. And so they do a great job all during the visit. And so it goes on for an hour and a half, whatever. And after that time, I say, okay, you guys can pack it in. But then my boss at the time, Bill, he's a few minutes away from the dealership, and he calls me and he says, we need to spend another hour there because we want to show this dealer some extra attention. And this happens from time to time along the route, especially once we get into Utah for that last week or so. And now I've got to, deliver this news to my guys. And let me say up front that Johnny D and Lawrence R, if you want, and Lawrence were both fun guys. They're full of energy. They're always going the extra mile to make the relay experience the best for everyone involved. But again, it's by this time, we've been on the road for 2 solid months. And actually, it's been more than that, because if you count the 10 days that we were in Atlanta just getting everything ready, we've been zigzagging across the U.S. We're always supposed to be on, right, in front of the public. And all the miles and the very long hours are taking their toll on the team. So here I am at the dealership, and Johnny D and Lawrence think they're done for the morning. And they're closing up our tent, and they're packing the RV up. And I come over and say, guys, we can't leave just yet. We need to stay here for another hour. And so Johnny D, who is probably 6 inches shorter than I am, but he's a wiry guy who looks like he probably can hold his own against anyone. And he just flat out refuses. He and Lawrence are done, he says. They're leaving, and I say, you can't do that. And then he has to set everything back up, and we have to stay. And I have to say, all this is happening while we are surrounded by the dealership employees, by dozens of visitors. And Johnny D comes right up to me, and he says, Steve, we're leaving. And if you say anything, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. And I do not de-escalate. I put my face right in front of him and just say, you go ahead, Johnny. And that's right around the time that my boss, Bill, shows up. He pulls me away from Johnny D and pretty much just throws me in his Chevy Tahoe while he goes to talk to Johnny D and to Lawrence. And they ended up staying, and they set everything back up. Bill, I think, screamed at me for what felt like the entire hour. And later on, though, I remember we hugged it out. Johnny D and Lawrence and I hugged it out. And then, it was 2 more days to Salt Lake. So what are my takeaways from this? I think the most important thing, if I had to do it over, would be that I shouldn't have let the situation happen in front of the public, right? I'm the boss, and I have to be better. I should have maybe brought the 2 of them into the empty RV and explained calmly to them that we had to stay there. And I should have followed it up with some sort of maybe incentive, like, guys, you know what? Dinner's on me later, or something. I think both of those tactics would have helped, but I mean, who knows? Maybe both of them would have just pummeled me in the RV if no one was watching. So whatever the case, I think the most important thing to remember is that we're all in this together. So we've got to accept the lows as much as we revel together in the highs. So that's a wrap on this episode of the Pro Confessional. I hope you liked it. And if you did, please like and subscribe. Until next time, I wish you well, and thank you for watching.